Welcome to The Explainer. Okay, today we are diving headfirst into one of history's absolute greatest, most fascinating unsolved mysteries. I mean, just imagine an artifact so totally baffling, so meticulously put together that it has literally stumped the brightest cryptographers, historians, and linguists for centuries. We're talking about a 600-year-old enigma known as the Voynich Manuscript. So let's jump right in and explore exactly what we know and, well, what we don't, using the strict historical evidence we actually have at our fingertips.
So what if there were a book that nobody on Earth has been able to read for more than 600 years? It honestly sounds like the plot of a crazy Hollywood movie, right? But no, this is a very real, physical object. And we're about to peel back the layers of this massive enigma, step by step. The stakes here are incredibly high, because every single page of this text challenges our understanding of medieval history and pushes the absolute limits of modern cryptography.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that the Voynich manuscript isn't just lost to time in some dusty, ruined castle somewhere. It sits in a highly secure, totally modern location right now. It's safely housed at Yale University's Beinecke Rare Book and Manuscript Library. And you know, knowing its location is absolutely crucial because it reminds us that this is a tangible artifact. Researchers can physically examine the aged parchment, they can see the dramatic natural colors of the ink, and study these beautiful handwritten pages right up close. It is an undeniable physical reality that just continues to defy translation.
Section 1, A Trail of Ownership, Tracing the Past. While we remain completely in the dark about what the words actually say, we do actually have historical evidence of the specific individuals whose hands this book passed through over the centuries.
So, we have early letters connected to the manuscript that place it securely in the possession of Emperor Rudolf II back in the early 1600s. It kind of circulated among European scholars for a bit before totally dropping off the map. Then, we hit a really pivotal moment in 1912. An antique book dealer named Wilfrid Voynich rediscovered the book, which, as you might guess, is exactly why it bears his name today. Finally, that trail leads us straight to the present day, locked up securely at Yale. This unbroken chain of custody is super important because it proves the book isn't just some clever modern forgery. It has a real, documented past.
Section 2. Inside the bizarre pages. Unintelligible contents. We know exactly where it is, but what is actually inside it? Well, let's turn our attention to the physical contents of the manuscript, because the visual information is honestly just as perplexing as the history itself. Based on some incredibly detailed macro shots and close-up illustrations, researchers have actually categorized this beautifully chaotic manuscript into 6 distinct sections. First up, we have plants. But wait, these are elaborate, totally unidentifiable botanical drawings, nothing you'd find in your backyard. Then we have astronomy and biology, featuring these really strange, almost otherworldly diagrams. We also see sections entirely dedicated to cosmology, pharmaceuticals, and what appear to be recipes. I mean, just imagine flipping through an ancient guide to the natural world, complete with all these pharmaceutical mixtures, but you literally cannot understand a single ingredient. The whole shebang is visually stunning, highly organized, and yet completely, utterly unintelligible.
Moving on to Section 3, The Unbreakable Code. A cryptic text. Because if you think the illustrations are strange, the writing itself is where the mystery truly deepens, and it's where linguists frankly completely lose their minds.
And this brilliantly illustrates the core problem. When we look at known languages, we rely on recognizable alphabets and readable syntax, right? Basically, structures we can easily decode. But the Voynich text uses a totally unknown alphabet. Here's the kicker, though. It is not just random scribbling. The text features repeated words and highly unique statistical patterns that actually mimic real human language. For example, the word frequencies obey mathematical patterns typically found only in natural languages, where, the most frequent word occurs roughly twice as often as the second most frequent. It flows and behaves organically. And that is exactly why cryptography experts remain so completely fascinated by it. It looks perfectly readable, but it just stubbornly refuses to give up its secrets. Because it behaves so strangely, researchers have essentially narrowed it down to 3 main hypotheses for the unreadable text. First, it could simply be a completely unknown language, perhaps some isolated dialect that vanished from history. Second, it might be a complex, deliberate cipher, a secret code, specifically designed to hide sensitive information from prying eyes. Or, third, it could be an entirely unknown writing system that just doesn't correspond to any linguistic rules we currently understand. Now, to be clear, these are just theories. The truth is, nobody knows for sure.
Section 4. Modern Scientific Investigations. Analyzing the artifact. So when historians and linguists hit a brick wall with the text, modern science steps up to tackle the physical object itself. To truly understand the physical book, scientists deploy a really rigorous methodology. They begin with Step 1, radiocarbon dating of the materials. Next up is Step 2, which involves intense ink analysis, basically looking closely at the chemical makeup of the pigments used to draw those bizarre plants and stars. And finally, Step 3, parchment studies, which analyze the actual animal skin used to make the pages. Through these modern investigations, historians know the physical age and the material makeup of the manuscript with absolute confidence. So, while the words may be a total mystery, the physical book has been mapped entirely by science.
Just as a quick refresher, radiocarbon dating is a scientific method that measures carbon isotopes to accurately estimate the creation date of organic materials. When scientists actually tested the ancient parchment of the Voynich Manuscript, this exact method confirmed its creation date. So this isn't just guesswork. It's exactly how historians can definitively state that the materials used to create this book are indeed over 600 years old. Science gives us the exact era, even if it can't translate a single drop of the ink.
So, let's recap. We've established its ancient age. We've tracked its journey from emperors to modern universities. And we've analyzed its bewildering mix of unearthly biology and unbreakable codes. The physical reality of the Voynich manuscript is perfectly documented. Yet its soul remains entirely sealed off from us. Which leaves us with one final haunting thought to consider. What if this mysterious book was never meant to be read by ordinary people?
All right, let's dive right into this explainer and reopen the case file on what is, without a doubt, the absolute most baffling book in human history. Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're picking up our investigation into an artifact that has literally frustrated historians, linguists, and cryptographers for well over a century. We've got the clues, we've got the suspects, and we have the modern tech ready to roll. But before we get to the really cutting-edge science being used today, we need to ask ourselves a fundamental question about the very nature of this text. I mean, really think about that for a second. What if the world's most famous book was intentionally designed to be completely unreadable? I want you to act as co-investigators with me today. We are staring down an enigma that seems almost perfectly built to defy decryption. Is it actually possible that the author's ultimate goal wasn't to share knowledge, but to hide it away forever? So as we go through the evidence today, keep asking yourself, are we looking at a profound message or just a masterfully crafted lock with no key?
So, just to quickly recap the incredibly high stakes from Part 1, we are dealing with a totally unique medieval artifact. Carbon dating puts it firmly in the early 15th century. It is packed with this bizarre botany, like plants that do not seem to exist on this planet, along with strange astrological charts and these naked figures bathing in weird green pools. And of course, there's the text itself. Over 200 pages of an elegant, flowing, completely undecipherable script. This isn't just a tough crossword puzzle. This is a book that has consistently stumped the absolute brightest minds in the world for centuries.
Moving on to Section 2, the suspects, decoding the major theories.
What's honestly so fascinating here is just the sheer variety of theories scholars have brought to the table. We're looking at 7 distinct possibilities. It could be an unknown or lost natural language, a highly complex cipher, an artificial language, a disguised medical or alchemy text, or, the ultimate deception, a complete hoax. And because the manuscript itself gives us absolutely nothing to go on, academics have had to build entire investigative frameworks around every single one of these hypotheses. Let's break down the evidence for and against the most prominent ones.
First up, we have the theory that this whole thing is written in an unknown or lost natural language. Now, the main evidence for this? It's the incredibly complex linguistic structure, the grammar, the syntax, the way the letters group together. It honestly behaves exactly like a real spoken language. It has that natural rhythm. But here is the massive catch. The evidence against it, there is zero matching vocabulary anywhere on Earth. If this was a language actually spoken by a group of people in the 15th century, there should be some other record of it somewhere. But there isn't. It literally exists nowhere else but in these pages.
Next on the suspect list is the complex cipher theory, and the evidence for this makes a lot of sense historically. Medieval Europe was practically a golden age for secret codes, diplomats, and spies. Encoding sensitive stuff was totally standard practice. But the evidence against it is just mind-bending. This text has completely resisted all modern decryption efforts. I mean, the legendary WW2 codebreakers, the exact same geniuses who cracked the supposedly unbreakable Enigma machine, they took a crack at this manuscript and completely failed.
If it's a cipher, it defies every known cryptographic rule we have.
All right, so what about an artificial language? The evidence for this lies in the highly structured, almost overly neat word patterns on the page. It's so precise and repetitive that some scholars think someone painstakingly engineered a brand new tongue entirely from scratch. But the huge strike against this theory: invented languages, what we'd call conlangs today, like Tolkien's Elvish or Star Trek's Klingon, they were practically unheard of in the 15th century. It would be a massive historical anomaly for someone back then to invent an entirely synthetic language just to write one single book.
Then we have the medical or alchemy text hypothesis. At first glance, this seems like the most obvious answer. The visual evidence is overwhelming. You've got hundreds of detailed botanical drawings and anatomical diagrams. It looks exactly like an encoded medieval herbal encyclopedia. But here is the bizarre contradiction. Almost none of the plants depicted actually exist in nature. You'll see the roots of one plant glued to the leaves of another, topped off with completely alien flowers. It's basically a botanical encyclopedia of a completely fictional ecosystem.
And that brings us to our final major suspect, the hoax theory. The idea here is that the text could just be meaningless gibberish, a total scam designed by a con artist to look like a magical text just to fleece some gullible noblemen. It certainly explains why it can't be decoded, right? There's nothing to decode. But you really have to question the economics of that. Back in the 1400s, high-quality animal skin, parchment, and specialized inks cost an absolute fortune. The sheer amount of money required to get the materials for a 240-page book makes it incredibly unlikely someone would go to all that trouble just to pull off a meaningless prank.
Let's jump into Section 3, the forensics, modern tech versus ancient code. So we're shifting gears to the modern era now, where researchers aren't just using magnifying glasses and intuition anymore. They are bringing heavy-hitting 21st century forensic technology straight to a 15th century crime scene. And to get how they're doing this, we need to define a really critical field: computational linguistics. Basically, it's the application of computer science to analyze language patterns, syntax, and statistical rules. Today's investigators aren't trying to translate the book word by word. Instead, they're using advanced AI and cryptography to hunt for the hidden architectural structure of the text itself. They're looking for the mathematical heartbeat of the language.
So here's the exact step-by-step procedure these researchers are using right now. Step 1. High-resolution digital imaging captures every single microscopic stroke of ink. Step 2. They feed that entire script straight into advanced machine learning models. Step 3 is statistical pattern analysis. The AI crunches millions of data points to find underlying structural rules. And finally, Step 4, they compare those newly discovered patterns with every known historical cipher in global databases. This process lets scientists see the data in a way the human eyes simply cannot process. And the results of that AI analysis? Well, the computer revealed something absolutely incredible. 100%. The analysis proved that the text in the Voynich Manuscript perfectly follows something called Zipf's law. That's a statistical mathematical rule about word frequency. And get this, it is present in 100% of real, natural human languages. The fact that the Voynich text strictly follows this invisible mathematical law heavily implies that it is not just random gibberish. It strongly suggests there is real, structured meaning hiding right there in plain sight.
Moving on to Section 4, red herrings, debunking popular myths.
Because a mystery this famous naturally attracts some pretty wild theories, right? Browse the internet for 5 minutes and you will undoubtedly run into the speculative fiction side of things. People claiming it's an alien language, a book of literal magic, or a map for a secret society. And look, while that makes for fantastic movies and internet forums, we really have to contrast that with scholarly reality. The reality is there's absolutely zero credible historical evidence to support any of those claims. We've got to ground ourselves in the facts. We can still appreciate the fun of the mystery without totally abandoning the scientific method.
Which brings us to the final phase of our investigation, Section 5, the verdict, what historians actually know.
After all these centuries of failure, let's strip away the theories and just look at the established facts. We know exactly when it was made, carbon dated definitively to the early 15th century. We know it uses authentic, period-accurate materials, and, thanks to computational linguistics, we know it has a distinct, statistically real linguistic structure. But look at the complete unknowns here. The author? A blank. The meaning? A blank. The true purpose of this book? A total blank. We know the when, the what, and the how, but the who and the why remain completely missing.
Which leaves us with one massive, provocative question. Will the Voynich manuscript ever be decoded? Honestly, experts are totally divided on this.
Some think that with the explosive growth of machine learning, an AI will eventually find the key that cracks the code. But others argue that without a Rosetta Stone, a bilingual key that actually give the words context, it's mathematically impossible to translate, effectively locking its secrets away forever. It truly remains history's greatest unsolved mystery. So what do you think? Is it a lost language just waiting to speak again, or the ultimate medieval puzzle designed to never be solved? Thank you for exploring the evidence with me in this explainer. Keep questioning, keep analyzing, and I'll catch you in the next one.